starting to write like an intro, like, like a podcast intro. I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a podcast intro. Welcome to the Hero Shop Podcast, where we chop it up with the leaders in the Amazon FBA and e-commerce space, discussing brand and creative design, latest strategies and techniques. How was that? Was that good?
Are you going to get a guy to do the famous voiceover? You got to get that movie guy.
Yeah, I should. Butter has totally hired those people for
in a
sure.
world.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I got a guy like that from Fiverr for like super cheap once.
Yeah, they are on Fiverr and they'll do it for like $10.
Yeah, I know. It's awesome. It's awesome. So first tip of the day, if you're looking for VO for your sponsored video ad, go to Fiverr. There's some good dudes on there. I used a guy with like an English accent once. It was awesome. Okay. Brandon, I'm super stoked to have you. I have followed you in the space. You have a company called Seller Systems, right?
Yeah.
Wait, correct. Did I say it wrong? Oh, no, that's right. Yeah. And you have a course. You have all this stuff. You want to just give us a little intro? And obviously you're a brand owner and you have a massive brand, 8 figures. So give us a little intro, and then we'll chop it up.
No, so it was cool. We actually we were talking about this a little bit earlier. How we met in 2018 at the Capitalism Conference, Ryan Moran's event, and since then, we've continued to grow. Both of us have continued to grow our businesses. So my wife and I think at that time maybe we were doing like six or 8 million in sales, and now we're doing north of 10 million a year for our own brands. And so my wife and I, around that time, we started to split up, where I'm spending more time on coaching with Seller Systems and growing the community that we have there and the mastermind. And then she's spending the majority of her time on the brands business. So we have a team of close to 30 in China, and we've got a team that we're building here in the States now. We're just finding that there's certain things that they're not very good at in China that we need people here: copywriting, marketing, launches, things like that. So we're kind of moving in 2 different directions, but the benefit is that, I stay really on top of what's happening in the world so that, I can turn around and teach it. And so I'm, obviously we work together and we're in our office and warehouse and long drive to work every day. And I always kind of stay on top of what's happening in the business, why it's happening. I do some of the launches myself and, train the team. So it's been a journey for us for sure since we first met in 2018.
Amazing. It's very cool that you're doing sort of a multiple things, which is similar to me. And there's such synergy between having the brand and really understanding the nuts and bolts and like being just sort of deep in the weeds. And I know you did that from scratch, just like me, like just grinding from the beginning, just figuring it out and hacking and whatever, and then teaching other folks. Is that business, the second one, the Seller Systems, has that become sort of a big revenue driver for you? Is it a pretty considerable? So it's mostly a course, right?
Yeah, so it's we've got some master classes which are more like introductions to Amazon. I use them more as filters for people so that if they're not sure that they want to do Amazon, then they don't sign directly up for a high ticket full course and mastermind, right? So Seller Systems itself is the way that I wanted to structure it, because I was one of the founding members of MDS years ago, which is $1 Million Sellers Mastermind, and that was the most impactful, part of this journey for us, which was being around like-minded people, high-level people that we could share strategies and pick their brains and meet up with, and that energy of being around people that are like you, that are driven and in the space, right? So I wanted to develop Seller Systems to be in that same vein, which was that it's a knowledge share and a very giving and abundance mentality type community, but it's based in content and based in actually driving success in the Amazon space. So most of our strategies are just very data based. We take a data based approach to product selection and keyword analysis and optimization. But the magic is the fact that we have a community with over 900 active members. Over 300 of those are 7 and 8 figure sellers, and Yeah, it's been a great revenue source. Up until this point, we've never run ads, and we were able to grow the community to this size just from word of mouth and from from different content that I put out either through podcasts, through YouTube, things like that. So from a revenue standpoint, a profitability standpoint, it's fantastic because I'm not paying for acquisition in that aspect. We still make more on the brands business still. So I always told my wife that that if we start to make more money coaching than we do selling, then I almost feel like I'm a fake guru at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah, right. Totally, I know what you mean. Um, yeah, it's interesting because there's so many sellers. The agency side or the education side can be huge, right? There's millions of sellers, and especially you guys have the connection to China. There's so many sellers there. It's an interesting thing. Yeah, I wanted to talk about how you have a data. You're sort of leading with data, which I think so many successful sellers lead with data. And my premise, because I wasn't good at that, right? I didn't have that skill set to start. Was I started the other way? I started with design and creative, and it's I have had to learn that Amazon is an algorithm, right? I had to learn keywords. I had to learn that side, and you coming from the other side. So I want to sort of frame that. That's our conversation today, and but I want to start at the beginning where, like sort of the big picture, I guess, where you see Amazon, and this isn't necessarily around creative or photos and videos or whatever. You can answer it however you want. Where do you see Amazon now as compared to when you started? And um, yeah, so like I guess yeah, take that where you want to take it because I'm sure you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, so it's awesome. Both sides are super important, and that's why it's a difficult business for a lot of people because you have to be left and right brained in that aspect. Um, Content drives clicks and traffic, right? So everything in marketing and everything on when you with running a business is two things: it's traffic and conversions. Um, Now, getting ranked well doesn't mean you're going to stay there if your content is bad, because people are going to not click on your listing and it's not going to convert. And click through rate, conversion rate are the two biggest metrics for ranking, for keyword ranks, along with relevancy and revenue and stuff. So, yeah, both sides are equally crucial. The data side and the content side. And we always talk about how there's two levers. For the performance of a product to drive click-through rate and conversion rate, and it's going to be content and it's going to be price. If you have shitty content, your price needs to be much lower to motivate people. If your content is great, you can start to raise your price. And so if you understand that those are the two levers, and then you can understand how to test and create great creative and great imaging, then you start to that equilibrium moves in the right direction for you to a profitability to increase profitability.
Yeah, that's one of the drums that I beat all the time is high level creative leads to being able to raise price, which leads to higher conversion rates. Then you can raise price, then you have higher margins, you can run more ads, you can sort of there. In our space, we're in a couple different, a couple of home goods, different niches. We see sort of some Chinese sellers, or I think they're primary Chinese. They come in and they're competing on price, and they'll even have one or two images. They don't even try, right? They're just like, and they're in some niches they just dominate because Amazon's very price sensitive. Um, but then there's these other then you have people that are higher priced that have incredible content and they're like just sort of dialing their listings in completely. And you see there's a beauty to that because that margin game gets really, really tough. And you see in the last 6 months, I'd love for you to speak to this. The game has changed to some degree, is changing. There's a lot of struggles. There's a lot of tightening. And I think some of these when you're playing the price game, it's gotten brutal.
Yeah, margin compression has been a real thing for the last 6 months, 9 months, because of increased logistics expenses, third-party logistics bouncing off of warehouses, IPI scores, and inventory limits have forced people to reroute inventory to a more expensive destination than straight to Amazon, right? So all of that adds up and takes away from your profit. So yeah, margin compression has been huge, and one of the reasons that a lot of these aggregators are really struggling is because of that. Because you have they've bought something at a multiple of profit, and then the profit has gotten compressed. So essentially, instead of buying it at 5 times, the annual profit, they ended up paying 10 times. Um, until things get back to normal or they can lean things out. And a lot of them are relying on the fact that they might have economies of scale, logistics advantages, things like that. But even with those advantages, they probably still had an increase in expenses, um, and ended up paying essentially a higher multiple.
Yeah, right. And the other side of that is that Amazon has grown. Amazon grew 100%. So last year, right? So even if they stumble around, their sales increased, 50 to 100% just because Amazon grew. So their multiples sort of in that way evened out a little bit. I'm in the process of selling my brands. I've got a couple, and I'm sort of packaging them together and selling them. So we're going through that process. Super super fascinating. Are you looking toward that path for you? If you don't mind talking about that.
Yeah, so we are hoping to exit, but we had to make a decision, and I think that everyone that is selling on Amazon kind of makes the decision at some point that when's the right time to sell. Um, I think holding on forever might not be the right way. I mean, you can continue to build upon the brand and grow, but if you remain stagnant, eventually you're going to die. There's lifelong value to different SKUs and to products on Amazon. Um, you have competitors that will come in with better offers, and eventually will start to eat your market share. So you need to understand how to continuously grow your business, and if you get to a certain point where you're uncomfortable doing that, either from a capability standpoint or from just a time perspective, because you have a point where you get to where it's you, a few team members, a few specialists, and you're running a $6 million business, for example, right? Now, to go to that next level, to go to 25 million, you need to become a real company. You need middle and upper managers. You need people who are A players that are able to delegate and work autonomously, um, in the right direction, like with an objective in mind. And so that's been the challenge for us, is that we made that decision to go to that next level. Whereas I think that the majority of people who sell at that first stage, which is like probably like a level 2. Level 1 is like you running the business as a solopreneur, getting to $1 million. That's great. Going to 6 million is probably that second level, and then that third million is that third and fourth level is becoming a real company.
Yeah, yeah, totally. There's those levels of being a real company, managing it like a real company, having systems, whether it's like something like traction or whatever, those kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah.
Having a real team that doesn't require you to do everything, and then there's also that conversation around a real brand, right? Building a real brand. Like, are you
Yeah, real
gonna set?
branding and
Yeah,
also multi-channel, right? So like you can go to retail, you can do wholesale, you can start looking at other marketplaces and global distribution. So you have so much opportunity to go to that next level, and I think that's where a lot of these aggregators and buyers are really playing, is like they want to buy that guy that hasn't done that yet, because then that's the value add that they can do, right? Like if they're good at the multi-channel, they're good at the wholesale, they have the buyers for the retail, they have retail distribution, wholesale buyers, and they have teams in Europe to bring the product to Europe if it's only on .com. And so that's their value add, and that's where they can really grow a brand as well. But that's all hard, right? And that takes a lot of time, a lot of expertise. It's a new learning curve, and it takes the right team. And a lot of people just aren't good at management. My wife and I, we were not good managers, and we spent the last year with a CEO coach. We spent over $100,000 for CEO coaching to learn how to do that, and I'd still say I'm probably not very good at it. From that perspective, my wife's getting much better than I am, but it's hard, right? And so, yeah, I think that for people that want to package up a brand and sell it, I think that's great. And so we've made the decision that I think we're going to go to that next level. Our goal of next year is 25 million, and then we'll see what we do from there. We definitely want to build that real brand out and compete in retail and really see how big we can grow it. We even to the point where we're looking at potential acquisition partners. That we can grow through acquisition as
right.
well.
Yeah, right. Um, the do you know the dry eye doctor guys?
Yeah, yeah.
Travis, yeah. That's how they did. They acquired a small brand. That was one of their moves. Um, okay, cool. So you're talking about building a real brand up to 25 million, and you say retail and all that. And so when you think about the are we talking one brand or is it multiple?
So yeah, our main focus now is toys. We've got a few different related brands in the toy space, but for the most part, like we're putting them under the same brand umbrella moving forward, and it's to unify the branding. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And how are you going about the branding and have you already done it and did you like hire an agency and like what are your thoughts around that process? Has that mostly been your wife or
Yeah, it's mostly on that side.
yeah?
It's for us when we think of branding. I mean, a content perspective is very important, but I think it's more also about how you're communicating to your buyers, creating loyalty and the communication that you have of how you communicate with potential buyers, how you come across as a brand, are the most important things, I think. So building up a real audience and engaging with them and unifying the feel of your products and unifying the content around all of your different SKUs. That's been the challenge, right? Because you want to tell that brand story and you want people to immediately recognize it when they see it, right? You want someone browsing to be like, oh, I know that brand. I've bought from them before and it was good. It was a good experience, and I'm more likely now to click them because I enjoyed that experience of what came with that. And so yeah, there's power to that, but it's difficult, and it takes you have to do it consciously. It's not something people, because there's also the other way to do Amazon, which is, hey, let's find products that represent a good opportunity from a data perspective. The sellers that are currently selling it aren't doing a good job meeting the demand. The keywords are there, the keyword search volume's there, but they're ranked on 60% of them, and so they're leaving a bunch of room on the table. And we can just meet that demand better by ranking and automating, or ranking our products better. So there's that approach where then you're just doing a shotgun approach of a bunch of SKUs that represent a good opportunity, high. It's uh, high opportunity game, high percentage chance of success, and there's no unification though. So yeah, I think at some point you need to start thinking about, hey, how do I get this brand messaging on point and consistent?
Yeah, and if you can do that, I think there's a whole other level of if you want to be acquired, then you're talking potentially like strategic, which then the multiples go up, or even just private equity or an aggregator. They're like, well, we're buying a real brand here, not just a few SKUs. And I'm seeing that in my conversations with buyers. Is one of the first things they mention is our brand and our brand story. And as Brandon's saying, it's not easy because it could be a 6-month process because you have to redo your packaging, you have to run out of stock on the products with the packaging, the old packaging, right? So you have to have you have to design it all and plan it all out, and then you have to actually execute that. If you've already had, if you already have products in stock or whatever, are
Well,
you finding?
here's a tip on that end. When you're going to change packaging or change a product, because you can add value, you can update a product, right? Create a new SKU or a new offer, keep it closed, and then send it into that one. And then when your other one is close to running out of stock or runs out of stock, because they always manage to find old inventory somewhere at Amazon. Like, I don't know, they just find a magic shelf. They're like, oh, we forgot about these few units, right? And then like you'll get mixed inventory and it becomes a problem, because then what you do is you update your content, you turn off the old one, you turn on the new one, and you don't miss a beat, because the keywords and the performance and the quality score is tied to the ASIN. It's not tied to the SKU. So then you don't risk any overlap there or any confusion.
And if you don't delete that SKU, if you close it but don't delete it, then you keep the reviews, right?
Yeah, even closing and deleting that SKU, you would keep the reviews, because the reviews are also still tied to the ASIN.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah, so that's interesting. So there's all these different wrinkles. This is where, Amazon is such a hacker's game, because it's like all those little nuances, right? Those little
Yeah, of course.
nuances of how, yeah, it's
Yeah, you have to know how to navigate things like that. It makes a difference. Because we've run into problems. Like we had to figure that out the hard way, right? Like we were just
yeah,
like, well, we need to update this thing. We had a bad batch of something arrive, and we were like, well, how do we deal with selling out of that, or maybe it wasn't up to standard, or maybe we decided to add a feature or add like a component or a bonus item or something, and it's like, well, how do we update the content and make sure that they actually get? Do we just like keep the old content for a while until we're sure it's out of stock?
yeah,
But then you never know, because it's not a first in, first out situation at Amazon. It might sit in the back of the shelf, and then a
yeah.
year later, someone gets the wrong thing, and the listing shows that they get the bonus now, and they didn't, and now you're in trouble. So we kind of had to like think through that and figure out a solution.
Yeah, and it's challenging because we don't have access to the customers the way that we should. And so you can't just send an email to every single one and say, "Hey, it might look like this or like this." I've seen listings where the second image is packaging may vary. Have you seen this? And like, and it shows two different options of the packaging on Amazon, like the second or third image.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's an
yeah,
option.
I've seen messaging. People use the images for messaging and like warnings, and colors may vary and things like that for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
totally.
funny because we do toys, and sometimes the factory will like randomly change the color of different accessories in the toy, and we have to put on the box like and on the listing, that the colors may vary too. And I'm like, why can't they just make everything the same color? And like, I don't get a straight answer.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's like the way that their molds are designed, they're doing multiple pieces in the same, for different toys
Mm.
in the same mold, and to save money. And so they're just like, sometimes you're going to get a pink one. And I'm like, well, that sucks. Like, I wanted a green
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, exactly. That happens with our non-Chinese suppliers for sure. Like they're less, but with our Chinese suppliers, it's typically done correctly, but to the right spec. Okay, so in terms of building your brand and whatever, I kind of want to know a little bit more of the details on how and do you have an internal team? Are you using an agency? Did you do a creative process where you like brainstorming ideas, come up with a brand story? Did you just kind of like figure something out and just do it? Did your wife just like write up okay, this is our brand story, and like tell me a little bit more about that?
So I'm modeling after Melissa and Doug in a lot of ways. So what I did is I looked in the marketplace and I said, okay, who are the big players in the 0 to 12-year-old toy space, and um, some fun toys, some educational toys, but like who's in this space that's done a phenomenal job with branding, that when you hear their brand, that people, oh, I can trust them, or I love their toys and I love their, and it becomes more about the company than it does about the particular SKU or the particular toy, and you get people that are just super loyal to them. So I just looked at what they had done. We have content all in house, so we have a videographer and two content designers um, in house, and so then it was more of trying to write the story and then convey that through our feel. Toys are fun, but like what we're trying to do is basically paint the primary colors, educational, fun, but educational type feel when you look at our branding. So when you read our brand story, it's like, hey, American based parents created this US based toy company from scratch that specializes in, and you don't get a lot of time. People's attention span is very short, so it's really tough to sometimes tell that story. But we have a long form that we share, and then we have a short version as well.
I'm looking at Melissa and Doug here on Amazon, and I see they have their second image is a beautiful image of a little girl. I'm looking at their Let's Play House Dust Sweep Mop, which I own because I have 3 children. I own this product. It's lovely. And they have 28,000 reviews. They're probably selling 200 of these a day or something crazy, maybe more.
I don't even know their BSR, but I could tell. We could
Yeah.
easily tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're killing it, I'm sure. But their imagery is quite good, and they are, hitting with the lifestyle image second. Their white image looks quite good. Then they have some infographics like doctor's orders, skills at play, 100% screen free. They're not in their main imagery. They're not really giving a brand story. But I imagine if I scroll down here to I'm trying to give you their BSR. Their BSR right now is no, forget it. If I scroll down
I'm
to their
seeing
A.
one that's nine. I'm seeing one that's 966 in toys.
Wow. So they're what's your
So
estimate on that?
sub 1,000 in toys. They're doing right now at this time of year, maybe a few thousand. Yeah, over 100. 100 a day
Yeah.
at that rank. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're making millions on that product. They have then their A plus content is really well done. 67,000 pediatricians, millions of families, a revolution in play. So they're going branding. They're going like building trust with like American Academy of Pediatrics, right? They're building trust, major trust building. This is a big company, right? Listen, Doug, this isn't an Amazon brand. This is like a big old,
This is a billion-dollar company.
yeah. But
They went institutional at some point. They started as a husband and wife, knocking on doors of mom and pop toy stores and distributing that way. And then they got some institutional funding to go wider. They got picked up into retail, and then they had a big PE firm purchase them a few years back for a few hundred million, I think.
yeah, so this is one of those stories where typically larger brands like this do not play the Amazon game well. But I'm looking at their content and it's dialed, super dialed. They have our story. They have an our story section. Melissa and Doug are real people and parents of 6 who are passionate about the power of play with a picture of them. So, in terms of content, they're really connecting the human story, which I imagine in your space is very important, right? I imagine you have pictures of children as well in your imagery.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you do that? That sounds challenging. Are you shooting in China or do you have Western models? Like how do you go about managing that?
We do very little live, so a lot of it is just super skilled
Yes.
Photoshop.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, I think you guys probably do that really well. I don't know your brand name. We don't need to mention it, but I always talk about that. There's that different level of so our content with our agency is that like Melissa and Doug level where you want to actually shoot these real models. You actually get a location, you shoot them for real. Then there's the version that you guys are using, which is really good Photoshop versions of children smiling or whatever. And then the product is nearby and it sort of looks together. I think those do work. I'm sure you have really good conversion rates. Yeah. Like your top products are converting it. What are they converting at? Like 15 to 40%?
Yeah, some of the top ones that are more straightforward are 40 to 60% even. It depends on the type of product and how much design parity there is between the different
Right.
SKUs, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So this is how the big players play. And I think, the Thrasios of the world come in and they turn the brands into these more Melissa and Doug level content where you have the whole picture. And that sounds like you guys are in the process of that. Like you're killing it. Your 8-figure brand, you're killing it. You're trying to get to 25 million. So that means you're probably at 15 or something like that right now. Right. So they're killing it, and you can kill it with straight just B plus content. I don't mean to insult you, but I'm
No,
sort
no,
of
of
going to
course.
describe
Yeah,
it, right? Right.
yeah, absolutely. Like we're up against a lot of C-level content. So
Exactly.
even being at B plus, like we're still
Yes.
ahead of our competition. Yeah.
Right. So if you're in a niche where it's like, where the content is better or whatever, and there aren't that many. I mean, not a lot of Amazon brands or sellers or products do content that well. You right. And I
Sure.
always say, it starts with what Brandon teaches, where you got to understand keywords. You got to understand these things. You got to understand the technical side of it. You got to understand what are the drivers. We talked about, traffic and conversion. You got to understand all of that. And you got to rank for keywords or else nobody's going to see your content. You got to start there. But in our game, in as things are changing, Brandon, would you say that content that having your content kind of dialed in is becoming more important these days? Or is
So
it overall
yeah,
like all
I
things are
think I
becoming
think it's
harder?
increasingly more and more important, and it's only going to continue to get that direction. I don't think you're going to be able to win on Amazon with B or C level content moving forward. It's definitely a large focus, and again, it goes down to you have a whole, like, if you look at more sophisticated products that are faster moving with more that are more mature, and you type in I don't know, diaper caddy, for example, or uh, any type of supplement or skincare product, you're going to get overwhelmed with how good the content is.
Yeah.
But there are still niches where the content's still C level and you can still compete. But those areas, those opportunities are definitely closing quickly, and you need to make sure that your content. And we know between us, I'm sure hundreds of 7 and 8 figure sellers that have struggling businesses now, and they had bestsellers that are now not bestsellers because they didn't update their content, because people came in with much better content and started to take away clicks from them. Uh, it's increasingly more important and crucial.
I agree, and not just because I have an agency in that space, but it's I've seen that with my brands, and then I see that the aggregators and the different buyers, PE firms, they care about this as well. So it's like this double edged thing where it's kind of becoming more essential to actually grow your brand, but then to sell it, I think you can get an extra multiple or whatever with a real brand, with a real brand story, with a because that's something that they can take immediately to retail or immediately to direct to consumer, or right. If you've just got SKUs on Amazon, it's very hard for them to pull those other levers. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And so we're in the process now of trying to unify that, right? Like, to go to that next level where our brand story is in our A+ content for every SKU, and it isn't, right? Like,
Yep.
um, we're driving traffic for product launches, and we're maintaining that list of that audience. We have insert cards that are driving people to come to our to our own landing page so that we can capture their information and provide them with discounts. And there's things you can do there, from a birthday club to different ways to interact that we're still not taking full advantage of, even at our level.
Yeah. Yeah. Likewise. And it's there are so many opportunities, and there's so many places to uh sort of optimize your brand. Um
I
let
just
why
sent you on LinkedIn a link to one of ours, so you can actually take a quick look at it
Okay. Do you mean live here while we're chatting?
if you want.
Cool. I will. This will be fun. We're looking at a like a plush type of toy here. He's got a great main image that really, really has a bunch of color in it. You've got these, so the product plays music, it looks like, and you have these musical notes floating around the product, which I think is against TOS, but works amazingly well. I think this main image is very good. It's one of the best I've seen, to be totally honest with you. Incredible job on this. Have you been flagged for that imagery? So I noticed what you're doing here. What he's doing, guys, is he has all of the graphics and stuff that he's laying on top of his main image, which sometimes can get flagged. He has it connected to the product itself. It's not off in white space. If it was off in white space, it would get flagged. But since it's attached to the product, kind of the algorithm that's reading these images thinks it's part of the image. Am I kind of picking up on that correctly here?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got musical notes on top of this that are graphics that make, and it's super well done. I mean, that is genius and very well done. And that's something that I try to do and recommend folks doing. So then in his second imagery, he's got the main selling point: ultra soft plush materials to protect and soothe your baby. That's a great line. And so he's speaking to the mom who wants to protect, right? Soothe and protect. Like that's what moms are
Yeah.
thinking
So
about.
our approach with content is generally that, I always try to tell my team, because we've seen a big difference. Even reordering your images can make a difference with
Oh yeah.
conversion. Um, so I think that a second image that conveys the benefits to the buyer helps increase conversion significantly in our experience.
Yeah. How much do you, so the amount of like split tests and sort of like optimizations and little 1% tweaks is endless. And so in a competitive market, I imagine you're doing that quite a bit. Are you running split tests? How do you do it? Do you do it on Amazon using their tool? Do you use pick?
It's become more of an SOP for our we call them salespeople. So our team that manages different SKUs, and so we're constantly trying to push. Right now, we released a software for the Inner Circle, which looks at the keyword data. So very quickly. So it uses our old methodology of pulling a master keyword list and creating relevancy column and really understanding where your competitors are getting their sales. And it does like hours of work in 3 minutes. So the reason that's important is because we can go back and refresh old listings very quickly. We know what keywords are driving sales for competitors that we're not taking advantage of. So part of like the SOP of our salespeople is to continuously improve not just content, but also from a keyword perspective. Are there keywords you're not indexed for that you should be? Do you need to rewrite the title? Do but part of their SOP is also on the content side. Go look at the competition, see who's beating us.
Yes.
Why are their images better? And then send instructions to the content team to give you an updated image to try, right? And that's kind of where we're at. But when you get to 20, 30 launches a month and you get to a bunch of SKUs and
Yeah.
you're trying to grow your team and train them and get them up to speed and get them sophisticated and well trained. Sometimes those little things you want them to continuously do get left as
Yeah.
a low priority, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. We have the exact same scenario, exact same struggle. And, it's sophisticated like the Thrasio where you have 1,000 employees or whatever. I'm sure they have the same struggle where it's like, how do you do all the things that could be done, that are necessary? And it's sort of like, I have this behind my desk in the office. I have just the single word focus. And because I think that's a superpower these days where it's like there's so much opportunity, there's so many options, there's endless amounts of things to do on your phone or whatever, endless amounts of things to do to optimize our companies and our brands and our products. And what do we focus on and how do we do it? And sort of like, do you guys have a matrix, I will call it, for like how to select the most important thing to do that moment for your team members? And secondly, sort of to that question is, I would love to hear how you structure your team. If you don't mind, like structure your team. Like you said, you have salespeople. Is that sort of like SKU managers? I would love to know how you kind of structure.
Yeah, so that's definitely on the SKU manager side. What we call salesperson, and they're doing the PPC and the optimization and just keeping track. So we have a checklist that they go through on a daily and weekly and monthly basis,
Per SKU.
monitoring competitors, making sure that lightning deals are triggered if they can be, monitoring inventory and sending to the logistics team requirements there. So that salesperson is basically the SKU manager on that end. Above them, we have a sales manager, and then we have different teams for design. We have different teams for logistics and product development, and
How do you manage the per SKU like P&L? So like the profitability of each
yeah,
SKU,
it's all
like,
driven
okay,
out through. We have an ERP system that we use that does break it all down, and then the logistics team sends a report. So we send mixed containers, obviously, and so that's where it gets difficult, right? Because you have to attribute
yes,
the shipping costs based on the dimensions of each SKU. So you have six cartons of this SKU out of 400 cartons. Well, you need to understand what the total cost was, divide it, and then figure out what it costs you per SKU to get that landed. And so we actually do drive that out to that level so that we understand our profitability on a SKU level at a very high level. And then the ERP system also helps us manage the performance of each individual salesperson because we can basically block off and they only see their SKUs and we generate reports just for each person that's in charge of each set of SKUs, right? So this is everything that we've been setting up for the last year and a half. That's been very difficult. From an objective standpoint, we learned a system with our CEO coach that is similar to EOS. It's similar to 40X, like OKRs.
yeah,
Basically, you're setting an objective at the company level, and then the teams underneath set objectives that are similar, but that are aligned, and then everyone's rowing in the same direction. Now, the most important part of that is that each team and each team member has to have what we call leading measures. What are the daily activities that they are doing that will move the needle? So, like, you have different levers you can pull on a regular basis. So we have to identify the levers that they can put the least amount of effort into that will move the objective the most, and then we have to sit down and discuss. Um, what are they measuring? What are they doing? What are the actual leading activities that are going to lead to those lagging metrics? So you have, um, I'll give you an example, and an example that's, by the time you look at the sales number, it's too late to do anything about it, right? That's the
Yep.
lagging result.
Yep.
So what did you do differently? Like, what could you do on a daily basis? And so we had an objective for one quarter. At the company level, we never have more than 2 or 3 objectives per quarter. And so we have to identify what that is for the next quarter, get everyone aligned, and then move forward. So leading into Q4, in Q2, we had a product development. Where we're like, okay, we want to launch 70 new products for Q4. So in order to do that, how do you work backwards from that objective? Well, we know that 10% of the potential products we look at are good enough to order samples. So, and then from the 10% of samples we get, we know that 10% will turn into an order. So in order to actually get 70 new orders, we needed to look at 7,000 potential products. So how are we going to do that? How big does our team need to be, and how many do they need to look at on a daily basis? And so that is the leading measure, is looking at potential products. And then that results in order, like the final objective, which is order 70 new products for Q4.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And I know you're an analytical guy, but you were saying earlier that you struggle as the manager. You struggle probably with the managing of people side more than the actual, like, creating the goals and creating those, like the numbers you were just running through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So learning to identify, learning to outline what success is,
Yeah.
and hire and train. And it's funny, the theme that I'm hearing over and over again. We're reading Scaling Up for the second time, and we've read like every management book there is,
Yeah, I
simply
know. Me
because
too.
like
Yeah.
it seems like they're all the same, but they just call things differently. But some are better than others.
Yeah.
We think Scaling Up's probably the best that we've read, so we're going back a second time and going through it again, and it makes a lot more sense after reading the other ones and coming
Yeah.
back to it. And
Yes.
been doing this
100%.
for 6 months, so.
Yes.
The theme is that as your company grows, you become less of an individual in that cog, like a cog in that system or that machine, and you become more of a training company. And so I keep hearing this system where it's like, yeah, this guy went from 100 employees to 1,500 employees. He went from 200 employees to 2,000 employees or 2,500 employees over the course of 2 years. He grew his business from 10 million to 500 million in 2 years. And the theme became, every time I would hear that, sure enough, they would talk about how the training was the key to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just is such a huge advantage that we have seller systems, and we actually are already doing a lot of that training, that when I sit down with my team members, it helps. It helps get them up to speed quickly, and it helps with the SOPs and the processes and stuff. But when I had that mindset shift, it's like, well, in order to grow our own company, I just need to do more training.
Yeah.
And that's my role in the company essentially now at this point, with my wife being the CEO. And it's just like, yeah, I'm a trainer and a consultant for my own company essentially.
Yeah. It's fascinating, right? It's these levels of the skill sets that you need to learn as you go through. Have you found that you've been able to really, teach your team, maybe it's key managers or whatever, or train your team to think this holistic way around Amazon, where it's like, you have just the different levers that need to pull, the way that you need to sort of analyze a market, the way you need to think about optimizing a product over time. Do you feel like your team is really thinking about that in like a way that you're like, okay, this is 90% as good as if I were doing it myself?
I wish. That's the hard part, right? Hiring the right people. So the human capital is the most important part after that, right? So like you can you can lay out the perfect system, but if you don't have the right people, the right butts in the right seats to actually drive it, then it's impossible. So we've gotten better at that. I think that one of our biggest struggles in the beginning was that we didn't have the right people. We didn't have enough people and we didn't have the right people. So it definitely stagnated our growth a little bit. We'd like to go faster. We're able to go faster, but we're held back by the human capital aspect and some aspects that we're finally solving. I think we brought on a full-time HR person finally last month, and that's making a huge difference. It's probably a hire we should have made 6 months ago or a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I spend a lot of my time in that space, HR hiring, managing, or is this person working out, whatever, all those things. It's it's massively important. Okay, cool. So, I think there's so many valuable things that we could talk about, but, one selfish question I have for you is, do you, let's talk about PPC and like ads and that kind of stuff. Two questions. Are you utilizing, maybe I've got three questions. Are you utilizing all the latest like sort of creative that Amazon has offered? Like for, I can't remember the names. I'm out of the weeds on PPC, so I forget stuff. But like, I think it's like headline search ads or the places where Amazon's allowing us to do
Sponsor
kind of
display,
sponsor
SE, and
display.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of cool creative now. Are you guys utilizing that? And
We stay on top of that. My wife is really good about staying on top of that. She dials into those calls that Amazon does. Like
yeah,
they have their ads team, and they're basically just a sales team trying to convince people to spend more money with them on the ad side. But for the most part, it's great because they tell you when they roll out a new product, new objectives. Like now they're doing a CPM versus a cost per click, and so yeah, we have to stay on top of that. And she tries to get the team to test every new opportunity there is for new ad placement, because we find that if you're an early adopter on Amazon with regards to some of these new ad placements, that the cost per click, the competitiveness is low, and then it usually results in better results in the beginning than it will eventually. It'll get more crowded, costs will
yep,
go up, things like that.
yep, 100%. So for sponsored video ads, I'm assuming you're using that to some degree. We definitely
Yeah, that
saw
was
that.
awesome in the beginning, right? No
Yes,
one
it
had
was.
videos, right? It was cost per clicks were nothing, and you could easily get the first spot on almost every keyword, and they converted well. People were like, "Oh, what are these video things?" And the buyers were trained to like, "What is this new thing? I want
Yeah,
to click on that and
yeah,
watch it and
totally.
do this." So
And
it
on
was
on
great.
mobile, it was massive. It was such a huge
Yeah,
placement, right? It was huge.
yeah, it was awesome. You couldn't scroll past it, right? And so yeah, it's definitely got a lot more competitive, and you have to do a better job. I think when we first rolled out video, like one of our lead in our content team had this dream of becoming a videographer forever, but was mostly untrained in it. And he was experimenting with stop motion with the toys, and he was experimenting with different things. The music is all cheesy and licensed, and you've got all these different elements to it. And I was like, this looks way too Chinese. Like
Yeah,
we got
yeah,
to do a better job. And so he's just continuously improved. But some of our old products still have like our long, they still have those old
yeah,
videos on them, right? But
yeah,
a video on every product is important because it does increase conversion, even if it's not a great video. But it has to be above a certain level. It can actually take away and lower conversion if it's too bad.
yeah,
You
yeah.
have poor English and obviously like foreign and low quality imagery in there, then yeah, people are going to bounce. Like
And I,
it isn't always a positive.
right, yeah, and I think it does depend on what category you're in. I think for the most part, people know that the toys are made in China, and we're okay with that. And I think certain products, if you're gonna, if it's a beauty product and you're kind of like tipping your hat that this is made in China, people might get scared or whatever. Like you got to be careful depending on your category. I think, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, consumables, topicals. Yeah, people tend to not trust as much. Toys though, they have their kids playing with it, so you really have to. Even though like most people know that the toys that they're buying are made in China, you still need to convey a level of safety,
Yeah, yeah,
which is like that's that comforting trigger for us, which is why you saw it in that second image there. Um, we always try to convey, hey, like we pass all the standards above and beyond, right? Like we do extra testing, and we want to make sure that we're never endangering any kid that plays with our toys or infant or anything.
yeah. So you see how he's talking about that emotional connection to what the customer needs, and that's that branding, that's that story. I think it sounds like you're intrinsically good at that, and I think people that are getting new into the space or whatever, it's like you do really need to connect to who you're selling to, what their needs are, what their kind of life. I always talk about this where it's like you're living a life, you have needs and wants and desires, and you go to Amazon to fulfill one of those. And if you can connect to that need, that desire in that person that's there, like my son has eczema, and if it's like, this is a product for for 2 year olds that have eczema because blah blah blah, they have this kind of spot, and my son has that exact kind of spot. It's like, dude, I'm sold, right? If you can connect emotionally to that person that's living their life, it's magic. So it sounds like you really get that. Um, and I think it's underutilized. It's underutilized, and important. Okay, real selfish question: do you run PPC? I noticed on that listing you showed me that you have three prices. You have 16.97, 17, and 20, or something like that on the three SKUs, on the three variations. Are you running PPC to one of them, the highest converting one? Do you run PPC to all three? And secondly, do you run at a loss on one of the SKUs, on one of the variations, to sort of make profit on the others?
So that happens occasionally. I think that like from a profit and loss standpoint, like you have a loss leader, you have a one with a lower margin just to bring them in and help convert. Once you get to above, I think 5 different variations, then you see a real tilting point there in our experience, because what ends up happening is people they resign themselves to the fact that they're going to pick one of those instead of bounce out and look for more
Right.
search results. And so just from a psychological standpoint, if they've got more than 5 to look at, they're going to pick one of yours at a higher percentage. So your conversion, your overall conversion rate and profitability goes up once you hit a certain number of variations. Yeah. So, but the parent SKU that we're bringing into is we're trying to maximize the profit, and we will drive to less popular variations with different price points. From a PPC perspective, we won't run campaigns targeting the same keyword with different SKUs, because
Right.
they'll end up competing against each other, and you just have you're less optimal that way from a click-through rate, conversion rate. But the other aspect of that is that you don't want one that gets a lower click-through rate showing up in the search results, and PPC can sometimes drive keyword ranks. And so if you're running PPC to a less popular variation, then you might end up swapping which one shows up organically, which would lower your click-through rate and potentially hurt your overall performance. But there are SKU-specific or variation-specific keywords that you should be running PPC and attempting to run PPC at, right? Like, so if I've got a giraffe variation, I definitely want to be running PPC and trying PPC at every keyword that has giraffe in it, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. I I could talk to you for a lot longer. I think we should wrap it up here quickly. How do you see the next 6 months playing out? And you can talk about, China logistics, supply chain issues, margin, whatever you think comes to mind. And are there warnings? Are there opportunities? Like, how do you see this next 6 months to a year playing out in the Amazon FBA space?
I think there's massive growth over the next year, and I think that a lot of logistics issues are starting to work themselves out. The backlogs at the ports are being fixed with 24/7. Like, the government is finally paying attention to the fact that the country's entire supply chain is in danger. So they just flipped the Port of
Yeah, I
LA
saw
to
that.
24 hours.
Yeah.
They're going to fix the trucking issues next and supplement the trucking industry with however they need to get stuff around the country. Hopefully they invest in rail and can high speed rail and other things that can help to distribute goods. But as far as costs have already come way down as well. So you're talking about a container from China to the West Coast was almost $30,000 3 months ago, and we just paid under $9,000 for one that's leaving later this month. So they've already come down significantly. It's really a big relief, because that was squeezing margins significantly. Amazon's able to rehire and grow, and they've got new warehouses that they're building that are starting to open up. So they've loosened up the restrictions on SKUs or on
Yes.
inventory units.
Yep. You think that'll
And
stick
so
around?
I'm sorry.
You think that'll stick around? Like they'll
I think it will. I think it trained a lot of us to get better at
Yep.
inventory management,
Yep.
and I think that it helped alleviate a lot of the issues that they needed going into Q4. If it continues to grow to the point where they get compressed again, then maybe. But right now is probably the best time in the last year to start an Amazon private label business for sure, or to grow. You should have your foot to the pedal to the metal, as they say, and growing as fast as possible over the next year. I think there's so much opportunity right now with all of those things getting better. And I don't see a lot of people are worried about stagnation, stagflation, and they're
Yeah.
worried about like the economy. But I don't see that as, I know inflation is a thing, but I don't see that necessarily as a danger. I think, yeah, you're going to have to raise your cost of goods, but maybe your price of goods, maybe as your
Yeah.
costs go up,
Are
but I
you
don't
raising
see our
prices?
costs going up significantly. Yeah, we haven't really needed to
Yeah.
significantly in a lot of places.
Yeah.
We try our best not to. So we were able to eat the margin and just to maintain our bestseller status and to stay ahead of the competition. In a lot of ways, it dissuaded people from getting into our niches too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we were, at our size, we're able to absorb that and just kind of, and then wait for Q4 and really take advantage on the Q4 side, raise our prices and margins and stuff. But yeah, I think I don't see the economy really struggling over the next year to 2 years. I think maybe in 2 years we have a downturn. Maybe we start to see some issues from between China's economy that's having some issues, and that when they cough, everyone else will catch a cold. So maybe in a year, but you have a year to build a multi-million-dollar business and sell it, and
Yeah.
it's feasible.
Well, that's encouraging news. That's a great way to end our session today. Thank you so much. You've really brought massive value, and we should have you back and have a chat again because there's so many more things that we could chat about, and it's super cool to, you're multifaceted. You understand the space super well. So thanks for spending 57 minutes and 10 seconds with us. Any last words for the faithful?
No, just the again, I think that the thing that separates those who make it in business, any business, but particularly this Amazon business, and the theme that I see over and over and over again with all of the successful sellers that I network with and that are students of mine, is that the ones that are successful are the ones that never give up. You're going to have things that happen, shit happens, Amazon competitors, logistics issues, quality control issues, supply chain issues. The ones that are going to, truly achieve freedom and multi-million-dollar type businesses and exits, and are the ones that learn from those issues and grow and never give up. So that's the only message I'd love to convey. And
Love
I
it.
appreciate you having me on, Judson.
Yeah. If you don't quit, you haven't failed.
That's
Right?
exactly right.
You're still going forward. Thank you all very much.